Holy Ghost, Batman, by Amorloran. Chapter 7, Uncomfortable Truths. The Fenton household was as usual mild chaos when the knock came at the door late one afternoon. Maddie was half in the basement, shouting something about recalibrating the ectofiltration system, while Jack was in the kitchen taste-testing his experimental ecto-pancakes. The knock came again, sharp, deliberate. Jack opened the door with his usual booming cheer. "Hey there, neighbor! Are you selling something? We're not interested unless it involves fudge." "Mr. Fenton," Mr. Lance said, flatly, stepping inside before Jack could offer him the dubious green pancakes. He was dressed in his usual blue shirt and tie, holding a clipboard like it was a shield. His tone carried the same weight of careful practice he'd used when trying to talk to Danny about his adoption at school. Firm but not unkind. "Is Danny home?" Lancer asked, scanning the room. Maddie appeared at the top of the basement steps, goggles perched on her forehead. "He is out with friends right now. Why? Is there trouble at school?" Danny was not, in fact, out with his friends, and had been heading down to open the door when Jack opened it. He stopped to listen at the top of the stairs. Mr. Lancer noticed him, standing there, and frowned at their inattention, but said nothing. In a manner of speaking, Lancer set his clipboard down on the nearest clear counter space, which happened to be right beside a half-disassembled Fenton thermos. "I have noticed behavioral shifts in Daniel these past few weeks. He's distracted in class, quick to irritation. He's still turning in assignments, but there's an edge to him that wasn't there before." Jack looked confused. "Edge? Like moody teen edge? Because, he's a teen?" "This isn't just moody teen edge," Lance interrupted, holding up a hand. "From my experience, Daniel is resilient. This is different. I've spoken with a few of his teachers, and we all agree he might benefit from counseling sessions at the school. Voluntary, of course. I wait to process whatever's weighing on him." Maddie frowned, genuinely puzzled. What could be weighing on him that badly? He hasn't said anything to us. Jack shook his head in agreement. "Danny's fine. He's a Fenton. Built tough, like one of my reinforced fudge molds." Lance sighed through his nose, the faintest trace of frustration crossing his face. "Mrs. Fenton, Mr. Fenton, from what I understand, Daniel recently learned something significant about himself. Something personal. I'm not at liberty to disclose how I know, but I think it's affected him more than he wants to admit." Neither parent reacted in the way Lance expected. They simply exchanged a glance that was more confusion than alarm. "I'm not sure what you're referring to," Maddie said slowly. "He hasn't mentioned anything out of the ordinary." Lance studied them for a long moment, clearly debating whether to push. When he sighed, picked up his clipboard and adjusted his tie. "I'd still like you to consider the counseling sessions, even if you think he's fine. Sometimes the deepest bruises are the ones no one notices." With that he excused himself, leaving Maddie and Jack standing in the foyer, still looking more perplexed than concerned. Danny, standing at the top of the stairs, balled his fists and retreated to his room, closing the door slowly. Then he climbed out of his window onto the roof as the sun dipped, just wanting to think about how to approach this. It wasn't until later that evening, when Danny came inside, that he felt confident to confront his parents. He found them both in the living room, Jack on the recliner, Maddie sorting through notes. I stood in the doorway for a long moment before speaking. "You could have told me," Danny finally said, voice steady but tight. Both parents looked up. "Told you what, sweetie?" Maddie asked. "That I was adopted." The words hung in the air like a shot fired in the silent room. Maddie's hands froze mid-turn of a page. Jack's mouth opened, then closed again. Maddie's eye softened, but she still looked confused. "Danny? We aren't hiding it to hurt you. You just never told me." Danny cut in. All these years you let me think I was your kid, that I was born to you, and I had to find out while cleaning. Jack sat forward, his usual booming voice reduced to something quieter. You are our kid. That's never changed. That's not the point. Danny's voice cracked. I have spent 17 years thinking I understand who I was, and now I find out there is this giant missing piece of my life you didn't think I need to know about? Do you have any idea what that feels like? Maddie set her notes aside and reached for him. But Danny stepped back. Danny, sweetie, you were born in Gotham. You have always been accident-prone and determined. By the time you were old enough to understand, we were scared you'd get hurt searching for the truth about your birth parents, and your father had recurring nightmares about you being kidnapped by Batman. As if we'd ever let our baby boy get kidnapped by that Jersey devil. Jack, for the 15th time, Batman is not the Jersey devil. No, Maddie, it makes perfect sense. There's historical data and everything. Jack then proceeded to roll a bulletin board out of the closet with red yarn connecting bird-themed vigilantes to a bird-themed Illuminati conspiracy, and the Batman to some Neolithic cult, which made zero sense to any anthropologists. Danny and Maddie shared the frustrated squint that had become normal for when Jack went off on a tangent. But Maddie massaged the bridge of her nose in frustration, knowing she wouldn't get him back on track for the serious conversation they were having. Danny, we wanted to tell you when the time was right, she said, but there was never a perfect time, and maybe we got scared. But then it just became easier to pretend nothing would change if we didn't tell you. We still love you, honey. You're ours in every way that matters. He looked between them, hurt and frustration written across his face. In every way except the one you decided I didn't need to know about. The silence that followed was thick and heavy. Maddie looked like she wanted to say more, but Danny turned and walked towards the stairs. Danny, Jack stated, only now zoning back onto the conversation. Don't, Danny said, without looking back. Not right now. He went upstairs, leaving Maddie and Jack in the living room, with the weight of everything unsaid hanging between them. Danny closed his bedroom door, leaning against it, his heart pounding harder than it had in any ghost fight in recent memory. He didn't even bother turning on the light, just let the room stay dim, the faint green glow from his desk clock the only illumination. His mind replayed the conversation downstairs over and over, the disbelief on Maddie's face, the guilty silence from Jack, the casual, almost blank reaction when he said the words, I was adopted. The ache in his chest didn't feel like anger anymore. It felt hollow. He sat down on the edge of his bed and rubbed his eyes. There was no point in trying to sleep. His brain wasn't going to let him. He needed something, a distraction, a connection that didn't come with 20-odd years of hidden truths. His phone was still in his pocket. He pulled it out, unlocked it, and stared at his contacts list for a while. His thumb hovered over a few names before settling on one, Tim Drake. He and Tim weren't exactly the talk-every-day type, but they'd grown close enough since Danny started spending time in Gotham. Tim was calm, observant, someone who didn't press too hard unless you wanted him to. Danny typed out a message, then erased it, typed again, erased again. Finally he settled on something short, neutral. Hey, you busy? Thinking about visiting sometime soon? No explanation, no heavy emotions, just an open door. The reply came back within a couple of minutes. Not busy. You're always welcome. Just let me know when. Danny stared at the screen, feeling some of the pressure in his chest ease just a fraction. Tim wasn't going to ask questions unless Danny offered answers. That was exactly what he needed right now. He typed back, "Thanks. I will let you know. Might be soon." Settling the phone on his nightstand, Danny laid back on the bed, staring up at the ceiling. He didn't know what he was going to say to Tim when he got there, or if he'd say anything at all. But at least he knew there was somewhere he could go, somewhere that isn't here. A little while after he stormed off, Danny sat cross-legged on his bed, absentmindedly tossing a stress ball from hand to hand. The glow from his desk lamp cast shadows on the familiar posters lining the walls, ghosts, spaceships, a few concerned flyers. None of it made him feel any more at ease. Jazz knocked softly before pushing the door open. "Hey, thought you might want company," she said, stepping in and closing the door behind her. Danny shrugged. "Sure, it's not like I'm getting any sleep tonight." She crossed the room and sat beside him, tucking her legs up on the bed. "You've been quiet since Miss Lance's visit." Danny caught the stress ball and held it still. "Yeah, well, it's not exactly something I can just shrug off." His voice was low, but the frustration underneath was clear. "I mean, they didn't tell me. Not once. My whole life. And I found out by accident that I was adopted." Chaz's expression softened. "Danny, I'm not saying they don't love me," he went on, staring at the floor. "I know they do. But it's like, don't I deserve to know who I am? What if there's something out there, someone?" Jazz rested a hand on his shoulder. "I get it, I do. And I agree, they should have told you. But you're not going to get answers from them if you're this wound up. Give it a little time, and maybe some space." Danny gave a short laugh with no humor in it. "Funny you should say that. Tim texted me after I told him. Said I could visit over spring break if I wanted." Her brows lifted slightly. "And you're thinking about it?" "Yeah," Danny admitted. "I think I need a change of scenery, just for a week, and clear my head." Jazz nodded, resolute. "Then it's settled. I will talk to Mom and Dad, convince them it's a good idea." Then he glanced at her. A faint smile tugged at his lips. "You'd do that for me?" "Of course, you're my little brother," she said, giving his arm a squeeze. "Besides, if anyone can talk them into it, it's me." For the first time in days, Danny felt a bit of the weight lift from his shoulders. Jazz found Maddie and Jack in the kitchen, poring over a schematic for some new ghost hunting gadget. The counter was littered with parts, blueprints, and a plate of cooling cookies that looked suspiciously like they'd been baked in the ecto-contaminated unit. "Hey, Mom, Dad?" Jazz began, stepping inside. Jack looked up immediately, face bright. "Jazz, perfect timing! We are working on something that will revolutionize spectral containment." Maddie shot him a gentle look and turned her attention to her daughter. "What's on your mind, sweetie?" Jazz hesitated for a beat, then came out with it. "Danny's been having a hard time lately. You probably noticed." Maddie frowned. "We've noticed he's been upset, yes. I think some time away might do him good." Jazz continued. "Tim, his bio dad, invited him to Gotham over spring break. A week in a different environment might help him clear his head." Jack set down his wrench, looking thoughtful. "Gotham? That's pretty far. And there's always the bet." He didn't finish under his wife's glare. Maddie's brow knitted. "We trust Danny. He's 17 this year, and almost a grown man. But with everything Danny's been through lately, I'm not sure about him traveling alone." "That's why I'm offering to go with him," Jazz said quickly. "I can keep an eye on him, make sure he's safe, and report back if anything seems off. You know I'd never let him get into trouble." Maddie and Jack exchanged a look, the kind that said they were having a silent parental conversation. Finally, Maddie exhaled. "We do trust you, Chaz. If you're with him, I feel better about it." Jack nodded in agreement, a smile returning to his face. "Yeah, you're responsible, level-headed, And you know how to waggle your brother when he's being, well, Danny. Chaz smiled faintly. So it's a yes? It's a yes, Maddie confirmed. Just keep an eye on him for us. Make sure he's okay. I will, Chaz promised. Maddie went to a cupboard and retrieved a watch. We've been developing this for Danny and Danny. After whatever happened to erase the rest of the world's memories of the disasteroid, the GIY has started up again outside of Amity. These will hide them from detection by tech-based InventNet. If you try to give this to him now, he might refuse. I will give it to him, and the other for Danny, since she seeks him out. Maddie smiled and hugged her daughter. Thank you, Jazzy. Of course. From the stairwell just out of sight, Danny exhaled in relief. He knew Chaz was good at this, but hearing his parents put that much trust in her made him feel safer about the trip, and a little grateful. His big sister was always in his corner. Returning to his room, Danny sat on the edge of his bed, turning the events of the evening over in his head. Chaz had pulled off the conversation with Maddie and Shag exactly how he'd hoped, but he hadn't exactly been truthful with her. Tim hadn't technically agreed yet. All Danny had said to Chaz was that Tim said he could visit, but in reality, that part was still up in the air. He just knew Tim would say yes, or at least he was pretty sure he would. Still, now that his parents were on board, it was time to make good on that assumption, but before texting Tim though. He pulled out his phone and opened the group chat labeled Team Phantom Prime. Hey, heads up! Looks like I'm spending spring break in Gotham. Tim invited me out. Tucker. Oh, sure. You get a cool Batman-adjusted vacation, and my family is dragging me to Barneson, Missouri. Do you know what's in Barneson? Nothing. Danny, pretty sure that's not true. Tucker. Name one cool thing in Barneson. Danny, I got nothing. Sam. Ignore Tucker's whining. That sounds great, Danny, and lucky for you, I'm free. I will come with. Danny, you serious? Sam, yeah, it's been a while since I've done anything together that isn't life or death ghost fighting. Plus, I want to see how Tim reacts to me in his territory. Tucker, do not get arrested in Gotham. I'm not bailing you out from another state. Sam, that's a very specific do not for someone who's never bailed me out before. Danny, I'm just gonna pretend I didn't read any of this. Shaking his head with a small smile, Danny switched over to Tim's contact and typed out a message, keeping it casual. Danny, hey, so, about spring break? Still cool if I visit? Might have Jazz and Sam with me. The reply came within minutes. Tim, absolutely, I will make arrangements. Danny exhaled in relief. Okay. The white lie was officially the truth now.